to my kitchen. I am so excited that you have joined me today because our topic for today is incredible. It's something that I've tried never to think about, and yet it is so real. And you'll love my guest. Welcome, Suzanne. This is Suzanne David. And tell me a little bit about yourself, Suzanne.
Well, I'm a nurse in the emergency department. That's my undergrad, and I just graduated from my master's in public health. And the issue of human trafficking just became a dear topic to my heart.
Human trafficking, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Have you thought about that? For me, when Suzanne shared with me her concern and her passion for human trafficking, I was just shocked. I imagined that all of this had gone away. For me, I had thought, you know, aren't we better than this? We're a sophisticated country. We're amazing women. And we don't let things like this happen to us. I remember reading a book a few years ago as my family had taken a trip. We took a trip up to Northern California and we're visiting ghost towns. And in one of the little ghost towns named Bodie, I picked up a book called Soiled Doves. And this book was about prostitution in America in the gold rush days. And then I thought, well, women did this because they wanted to escape. They had no other choices, and yet here we are in the 21st century. And tell me, what is human trafficking?
Well, human trafficking, it is a modern day type of slavery. You know, it's a crime against humanity. People think it's just sex exploitation of women, but actually does involve children and men too. And it's just not just sexual exploitation, but forced labor, forced marriages, putting children to beg on the streets, all that included in the human trafficking topic.
Oh my goodness, I would think that for my audience, this is going to be an extremely important topic. As sisters and women in the world, here we are in a lovely country with plenty to eat, most of us, too much, nice homes. We've got, how does this even happen?
Well, it's a big business. They say that after illegal drugs, human trafficking is the second biggest criminal business in the world. So it is easy when you have that demand for human beings to be trafficked and to be put in these exploitation positions, it is easy for them to come, especially if they have nothing in their country of origin.
Wow. Now, I know that I pick up the newspapers and I hear a lot about illegal drug traffic. It's pretty much in common news, but I don't think I've read about this in the paper.
Well, the statistics, actually, if you look up, the United States Department of State's report that approximately there are 600,000 to 800,000 victims.
That's more than 500,000.
Yes, annually being trafficked. And, you know, for our women at home, 80% are women and girls. And 18 to 20,000 of these victims are trafficked into our country, into the United States.
How many come to the United States?
18 to 20,000.
18 to 20,000 women and children get brought to the United States every year?
Every year.
I think I'm having a little power surge right here, but that's incredible. So that means that could be happening in my town?
That could be happening in your town. And you might not even know because it's such an underground business that you might not even know. If you don't know what you're looking for, if you don't know what human trafficking is, and that it encompasses not just sex exploitation of people, but labor exploitation of people, then you wouldn't know what to look for.
Oh my goodness. Have you ever met anybody that this has happened to? I mean, is this just a story? I mean, it's hard for me. Right now I'm thinking I've just kind of emerged to Fantasy Island and I've learned something incredibly bad that's happening in our neighborhoods and in our community and in our country. And I'm sure it isn't just here in the United States, but probably Canada and Mexico as well.
I actually was fortunate enough to meet one of the victims of sex exploitation and a victim of labor exploitation. And I got to interview them and talk to them about what happened, what caused them to be in this position, and how did they feel about it. So I actually brought a little clip of one of the victims, Maria Suarez. She was only 16 when she was sold into slavery. And
sold into slavery. Did we not abolish that in this country?
We have, and we have the universal human rights that prohibit slavery, not just in this country, but is a universal human rights, but we still have this issue.
Well, can we go see something about Maria? I'd like to show the rest of you, Maria.
First of all, I came over here to visit my sister with my father, thinking that I was gonna go back to my country, back to Mexico. My father left and I stayed here with my sister. While I was here, I just had thought about, okay, I'm here, I would like to work. But actually, the first thing that came to my mind was to work, and come home, never to go and stay in a place and work. So my dream was to work and help my family. A day for me in the house was just like being obedient, following rules, not thinking, not saying anything that will piss him off. If I do or say anything, he will beat me up, or right away he tell me he was gonna kill my family. Even if I break a glass, I used to get beat up. He had told me that he could read my mind. So actually the fear of me leaving or thinking to leave terrorized me, because the fear that I have for this man was so strong that I couldn't even thought about it. The fear of my family being killed, especially when this man, on my personal experience, especially when this man had expressed to me in details how he was gonna kill my family, how he was gonna burn my family at night when everybody was asleep. The fear of me to find out that I had caused that will kill me, but also when you become threat with the people that you love the most, you put yourself on the second place. Me, I was not worth it anymore. First of all, because he had raped me and he was raping me every time that he wanted. So I was not important in this world. According to me, I have done with life and I didn't have nothing to offer or nothing to do in this world because he had already killed me. So what did I have to offer? Now, what made me even more vulnerable was that how can I come to my family and tell them what this man have done to me? Not only that, but the threat that he had over my head. I was his slave, and he will kill me.
Oh. Oh my, he would kill her? That's what she believed?
That's what she believed. And it's very important to understand these women have no education. So they are, or very little education, so they are very vulnerable to anything that anyone promised them. If they come from a poor country where they have nothing to eat, there's a thing that we call in human trafficking when I talk about this topic is like the push and pull factors. What will push somebody to be in this position? And you look at other countries, and in our own country too, there are people, in poverty and in hunger, and then there is a whole domestic failure. Are they already being abused at home? Do they want to run away because they're being abused at home, or they're, gender discriminations, they don't have the same employment that we would. Maybe and sometimes here in America too, we wouldn't get paid as much as, a male would. But they sometimes don't even get any work in their country of origin. So it's hard for them to make ends meet. And so that's some of the push factors that push them out of their country. And then somebody comes, and usually somebody they actually know, a distant family member or somebody trustful to that community, that village, and say, hey, what about coming to America? We have better work, you're gonna have good money over there, and you can get an education, and you have food on the table, and you can send always money home to your children or to the rest of the family. So that whole idea comes into their heads, and they're just like, wow, I can really do good.
Well, and they've been watching television, because American television kind of goes everywhere, so television people have everything.
Yeah.
They have actually very beautiful homes, don't they?
Yeah.
So they think it's a great thing. And so Maria was sold by her father.
She was actually not sold by her father. Her father brought her into California to be with her sister.
Okay.
But she knew that her family situation at home was very hard and they were very poor. So she said, well, since I'm here in America, I'm going to work and send money to my family. So one day, when I was speaking to her, she said she just went out on the streets and she approached and trying to find a job, and a lady approached her and said, hey, what are you looking for? And she said, I just need some job. And she said, oh, I know exactly, where I could use you. And said that there was this old couple, more far in the countryside, that she could help them and take care of their home and stuff, and she will be paid for. Okay. And she agreed to this woman to go. And since, women to women, she felt secure. And she went with this lady, and this lady left her with this older man. She says it later on her interview that, he was an older man. He was 67. She was not sure. She was only 16 at the time. And he's starting to put that whole force and coercion into her, and for her, knowing her culture and knowing, that she believed in witchcraft and all this stuff, he said, I'm a witch, and I can read your mind.
Oh my. Whew. Okay.
Yeah. So even if she was just thinking of leaving, which I'm sure most of these victims are thinking about leaving
I'm sure
constantly.
They must.
She would get beat up out of the blue, even without doing anything wrong, or just by breaking a glass. So she knew, she thought that he was really, in her mind, that he could really read her mind.
Well, even if he couldn't read her mind, 67-year-old man, probably definitely stronger than a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah.
There's that gradient of power. And then on top of that, educational power, and there's community power too, because he would know his community. He knew everything around there. Now, was she free to go in and out of the house?
At one point, she became free, and that's usually what happened to victims of trafficking. At first, they have the thing, whoa, I need to go back home. And she said, I can't stay here. I need to go back and stay with my sister. And the lady was very assuring and said, his wife is going to come from work. Just stay tonight. Tomorrow I'll come and pick you up once you know what the job inquires. And she said, oh, okay. She felt a little at ease about it.
Nervous.
But she said, okay, I really need a job, so I'll stay. And from that, he just started the whole coercion factor of putting, ideas in her head that she wasn't safe if she left, that her family would be killed if she left.
Oh, wow.
That he knew where her family lived, and that he would burn the house, he would go after her, and he would find her. So she was eventually just coerced to stay in that situation, even though later on, a few years passed by, and he actually let her go out of the home and started working in a factory nearby. The money was all for him. So she was actually a victim of not just sexual exploitation, but labor exploitation.
Both.
Too. Yeah.
And he got the money.
He got
the money. Now, was there actually ever a wife in this?
There was never a wife in this.
Wow. Wow. This just makes me wonder, what was the neighborhood like that she lived in? Did nobody notice that suddenly this old guy, and excuse me, and I can say that because I'm in that age range, so I can say this old guy, has got this cute little 16-year-old. Was she kind of hidden in the house? Did we not know there was this? I mean, this is a huge age gradient. A neighbor should notice this.
Well, part of it was far away in the country. Okay. And I think at those later in age, I guess I'm guessing here, that they didn't really question about, hey, this man exploiting this young girl or so forth. Or maybe they thought, this is his grandchild and he's taking care of her. Or maybe he's helping somebody from Mexico. What a beautiful thing. But since they live in a faraway place, she said that they only had one neighbor that lived in a back house with his wife. And that's a whole nother story on itself, what happened to her after this neighbor moved in, yeah.
Okay. So she comes to the United States, doesn't know probably much language, doesn't know her resources. I think I remember you mentioning earlier that he even told her that law enforcement was evil or was going to do something to her.
One of the things of her being from a different country and not being legal in the United States, he did threaten her and said, if you go to the cops, first of all, they know who I am. they, you know, they trust me, and that was one of the things in their story. And then another thing is that you are illegal. So if you go to them, even if they do help you, you most likely be deported back to your country.
So that's sort of no choice.
No choice.
Well, thinking about that, I have to ask another question. This crime seems so large. You mentioned such big numbers. And big numbers usually don't happen unless there's a lot of money flowing. So obviously Maria didn't get any money. Mm-hmm. Where does the money come from in there? And what's the incentive to create this slave trade? I think that's the best word we should all call it. This is called slave trade. Human trafficking is too cleaned up. This is slave trade. So tell me about the money factors in here.
Well, it is estimated that annually people in this business make $33 billion.
That's a B with a billion?
With
Not
a
B. $33 billion.
All right. Now, it's funny because they did, like, the International Labor Organization
Mm-hmm.
actually tried to estimate how much each trafficker makes per victim. And they did a couple different studies, one in industrialized countries and one in transitional countries, more developing countries.
Mm-hmm.
And on the industrialized countries, being conservative, okay, of these women only sleeping with 3 men, and we're talking about sexual exploitation.
Only 3 men.
Only sleeping 3 to 4 men, depending on the day.
Right.
All right. And making around $100 per client. They will make annually for their trafficker $67,000.
And all he does is sit around, or the trafficker. I shouldn't say it's a he because it might not be. But
It might be a lady too, yeah.
whoa, that one really bothers me to think a woman would do this to another woman. But yeah, $67,000 and you don't have to do anything. But then if you can traffic 3 or 4 of these women, you'd
double, triple
you'd be
that.
a fat cat. You could just kind of sit back and chill.
Yeah. And it's the whole thing too that, you know, drug trafficking or armed trafficking, you sell a gun and that's it. You sold the gun, you got the money, and you pocket it. You sold drugs, the drug is used, and that's it. But you have a victim, how many times can you actually sell that victim?
Oh, wow. That's very frightening. And then that's awful. I mean, that's just against everything that we believe as a society. I hope as a world that this isn't okay. And yet we know this is so many women. Now, do some women get involved in this voluntarily? I mean, remember back to my book on soiled doves. Some of those women actually chose to leave their family, and they chose this lifestyle, and a few of them turned into madams and ran decent houses. And yet when I remember some of the victims I remember from reading that were in San Francisco where they were captured, I believe, from Japan and brought over and just kept in these hovels and were, you know, encouraged to service many men a day, which is just absolutely appalling to me. Are there women who would voluntarily do this, or are they all coerced, and are they all duped, or?
No, I like a couple of the books that I read and researched. There are some women that are already prostituting themselves in other countries. And then there is the recruiter or the trafficker that comes along and say, hey, you know, you want a better job? I can take you to Europe or to the United States to have, you know, your own little pole, and you can dance there and make more money. And, you know, it's dollars now that you're going to be paid, so you can make, you know, all this extra money. So these women, sometimes they're ready into the life,
Okay.
the prostitution life. And then they're brought into the United States or to other countries in, again, with that whole idea that they're going to have a better life, even though they're being trafficked. I mean, they're, you know, doing the same type of labor they used to do. They're going to get more money, so they're going to be able to provide for themselves and for their family, you know, a lot better.
A better life.
But they ended up being brought here and put in the situation that, you know, they were before, even worse situations where now they have to ask when they can eat or when they can walk out of the door, and they're not getting paid. And the whole issue is that if you're not getting paid, then that's trafficking.
That's
Because
slavery.
exactly, it's slavery. That's why it's, you know, it's the modern day slavery. Because even if you did this before, I mean, we may think, oh, it's wrong. She was doing that in the first place, but now she's not getting paid for what she's doing. So that's wrong. But I don't like to think like, you know, when you ask us like, is that people that choose this, you know, because I don't believe that that's really a choice.
I don't think so either.
I think all of us women out there would, you know, understand that this is not a choice we would make unless we must, you know. And I mean, when we must, it's like, a choice is like an abundance of a variety of options. And if you don't have options and that's the only option because otherwise your family's gonna die or your kid or you are gonna die and you're gonna starve, or the country where you're in, there are, you know, disasters or war going on, so you do wanna get out of that life. So that's the only choice.
And then if the choice has been offered to you that it looks like something different, like a marriage or even a domestic help, you're gonna be a you're going to be a well-paid servant or a nanny. And then I understand also that there are some women who are actually just kidnapped.
There are some women that are just kidnapped. You know, and we talked about, like, you know, small little villages. It's just so easy. They don't know any better. They don't have much education. So somebody comes along and, you know, they might be very receptive both to that person, and all of a sudden they snatch their woman away, their young girls away. Oh. Or sometimes they even say, you know, I'm a good person, I see that you're in a bad situation, you have 8, 9, 10 kids, you know, I'll take one of your daughters or 2 of your daughters, here's $200, or here, you know, sometimes in this country it's even less, $30, $50.
$30 or $50?
To buy a daughter, and that would be like a lot of money for them, like a year plus, you know. Food, source of food, yes. And they'll sell their daughters, hoping that they will have a better life, hoping that this person saying that, you know, I'm gonna help your daughter, I'm gonna help your family, she's gonna get an education, then she can get back to the community, that they're actually doing this. And it's funny you ask, because I know, you know, the whole Haiti disaster, you know, the earthquake in Haiti, and a church here in America was trying to bring some of their kids.
Yes.
And they were actually trying to help the kids by bringing here. But then the whole issue of, are they trafficking?
Oh,
are they bringing these victims?
that. I remember that big thing in the news, and I thought, wow, here's a church trying to be really good, and there's little children without parents, and what a lovely thing, and why would the government get involved? I remember thinking that. But now this makes a lot of sense.
Well, you have to think, where are you going to place these kids? You know, is it really good homes, or
have they been checked out? Have they gone through the family studies?
Yeah, a couple of the stories that I also read on Victims' True Stories, it was of a lady that came in, got married. It was an Asian lady, got married with a Baptist. I don't think he was a priest, but he was a true Baptist, just very strong religious man. Good church person. And it happens in any church.
Sure.
Right. It's not just Baptist. It can be Catholic, SDA, you name it. It could be any church. There's always, you know, somebody that
is hiding in church. Church is a somewhat good place to hide.
Great places to hide, actually. You know, you can act like, oh, my Bible, I'm holding my Bible, I read my Bible, but, you know, what you do in your time at home, in your closed doors, is up to you. And he actually married this Asian lady, brought her in. And this Asian lady, I think she was a little bit more educated, so she actually tried to talk to the pastor and say, hey, things are not doing good at home. You know, our marriage is not good. And with her broken English, trying to explain, the pastor just shut her down and said, you know, you need to do better. Marriage is not an easy thing. You need to pray more. You need to
serve your husband.
Serve your husband better. And she was the whole time being, you know, sexually exploited. That's not what she asked. I mean, for more than, yes, a wife is supposed to have certain duties, you know what I'm saying? Any woman in America would agree with me that, you know, if you're not up to it, I'm sorry, honey, not tonight, you know? So, but when you're forced and you have to work in the house and you have to do certain things that, you know, your beliefs don't allow you, or you think it's wrong, then you would hope that your husband or the person you loved and you marry would respect that.
Well, this is huge. I hope you're hearing this, women of America, viewers. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. I keep thinking, we have moved past this. We are an educated society. We are caring. And yet this could be in your neighborhood, and this could be in your neighbors. What should I be doing? I live in my house and I go to work every day. How would I know this is happening? or maybe at least have an inkling?
Well, again, a lot of the victims that are trafficked internationally, they don't know the language, or they're just very reserved because that's what they were pushed to do by their trafficked. So they're not going to approach you.
So if I suddenly see somebody living next door to me who maybe doesn't speak very good English, maybe I should get to know them.
You should.
Invite them over to my kitchen.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
That's a good neighbor would do. Get to know them. Get to know them in your churches too.
Yes.
They are being brought to the churches, like the story I said. The best thing is to just educate your children, educate your community about what's going on, and get to know the people around you. You know, find out, does she fit the description, the age, the gender, the ethnicity? You know, does she fit some of the categories that we spoke about it?
And then if I notice something going on, and it seems odd, it seems unusual, this just isn't fitting what usually happens in my neighborhood, and I've tried to get this person over, and maybe they're too frightened to come to my home. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're just
most likely they won't be even allowed to come to your home.
Right. So but I kind of walk out every day as I walk, and I notice there's a young girl or a lovely new woman who doesn't seem to speak English at the next door neighbor's house.
Find out what they got.
But I think something strange is going on. Mm-hmm. Can I do anything?
Yes, you can. You
should
definitely
can.
I
be nosy?
Oh, yes, you should.
Okay.
I mean, I don't go in their neighbor's door and start, sneaking in and so forth. But if you have a true suspicion, you should definitely contact the National Human Trafficking Resource. It's a toll-free number that will investigate your report. FBI is on this too. They have a number for the FBI too, and I think it's going to show on our screens the number right now. For the National Human Trafficking Resource Center, the toll-free number is 1-888-373-7888, and for the FBI, it's 1-888-428-7581. And if you feel like there is any child being exploited, there is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, which is 1-800-THE-LOST. And that will be 843-5678.
Oh, this has been so good today. My heart breaks to think this is happening to the women of America, that any of the Americas that we live in, that this is happening to in our neighborhood. And I just encourage any of you, get to know your neighbors. This is what kitchens are all about. Bring people over, have coffee with them, get to know who's in your neighbor. And if you see something unusual, be brave. Step out. Call these people. I know that if you call them, you are not going to get in trouble, and you might save somebody's life. So until we meet again in my kitchen, you stay well and be happy. And I look forward to the next time we're together and can continue our conversations here in our kitchen.